So welcome back to another video here in Pennsylvania, and it's time for another episode in our French and Indian War series. I know I haven't done any videos recently on the French and Indian War. Kind of wait until things warm up when camping season starts again, and then we'll head back out to Western PA where we have some unfinished business. We got to finish the Forbes expedition, visit some of the French forts out that way, and then we got to do also what's called Pontiac's War, which happened right after the French and Indian War. But anyway, that's coming up soon enough, though. Today's February 26th, so February's almost over. March, and then probably in April, we'll say camping season starts, maybe. But anyway, in the meantime, as I do research on the French and Indian War, I'm always coming up with new sites to visit, even in places where I thought I had was kind of done with. That's kind of the case for today. So I'm back here in what's called Franklin County, kind of south central PA. Up there, once again, is the Blue Mountains. That's the border, the frontier, as we've also talked about in these videos, because there are a number of forts here in Franklin County. And continuing out west that way is where the Big Cove massacre happened in 1755, not too long after Braddock's defeat. This is the town of St. Thomas, by the way, not too far from Chambersburg. That's where we are. There are 4 forts we're going to plan on visiting today. At least we're going to try to get to them. And these are what are referred to as private forts. These forts weren't officially commissioned by the colonial government of Pennsylvania. We've gotten to all those. So these forts were not really garrisoned by troops from Pennsylvania or elsewhere, but they're put up by locals. Usually it was just a house that was fortified, maybe a stockade was put around it. Sometimes they were called houses of refuge. But there's places that, in case of an Indian attack, the locals would go to that house or to that fort for refuge until the attack was over. So that's kind of what these places are. They're often just called private forts too. And there's more. I keep finding more and more of them. So, and in some of them there's really not much to say. So, but I think I have some stories to tell about 2 of them. So let's hop on the road. And as I usually do in these videos, I'll be taking you with me as I drive along a little bit as we search for these forts. I might tell you a little bit of history of them as we drive along, but we'll see what happens. All right, let's quit blabbing and let's get to finding these forts. All right, so we're still in St. Thomas, but we're heading out. And the first fort we're going to look for is called Fort Waddell, or Fort Waddell. Not sure how they pronounce it. I'll probably put the name of it on the screen here. Don't know a whole lot about it offhand. I think it was on land that belonged to a Thomas Waddell. But it's just west of St. Thomas, right where the junction with Route 416 is. But once again, it's one of these private forts put up by the private citizens of the area for their own protection. And occasionally some of these private forts did have troops stay at them as they were patrolling the area, but they were not like a regularly garrisoned fort. They might have only been troops there every now and then. So we just got to head a little ways out of St. Thomas and we should be there. I think this one has one of the more modern blue historical markers, as well as an older stone historical marker put up back in the 30s. If you look off to the right again, you can see the mountain range. That was that frontier. We need to visit this place sometime too. The Toll House. Not sure if you can. Probably can't get inside. Alright, I'll get back in touch with you when you get a little bit closer. Well, I should have just left you on, because right here is the junction with Route 416. But I think I could park... Let's see, I think I can park on the other side over here. We'll have to dash across. I can see the marker right off to the side there. Let's park over here. So right here is the older marker. Took forever to get across this road. Here we go, Fort Waddell. It's a date of 1754. Sometimes these dates are a bit earlier. We'll talk about that later. So one of the forts for the defense of the frontier of Cumberland County. This part is now known as Franklin County. From Fort Davis to Shippensburg. Stood near this marker on the plantation then owned by Thomas Waddell. Put up in 1930. So yeah, we're going to try and get to the area where Fort Davis was today too. Yeah, doesn't mention it being a private fort though, but that's what it was. Let's get the modern markers up here. There you go, Fort Waddell, one of the line of forts built by settlers. There they had that correction there. In this region for refuge from Indian attacks following Braddock's defeat in 1755. It stood just to the north. So probably out there somewhere. Alright, well that was a busy road to try and run across. Don't recommend it. But we're going to head down 416 now, towards Mercersburg, to our next location, which is referred to as Reverend Steele's fort. Got some stuff to say about that one. But yeah, you can see some of the discrepancies and some of the dates and facts between the two markers. That's kind of the way it is. Yeah, the older marker says 1754, but the newer one says 1755. So it would be the newer date, because Braddock's defeat was in 1755. And that's when a lot of the attacks began. In fact, you mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Big Cove massacre occurred just over those mountains up there. And that was in 1755. And as the modern science said too, it was built by settlers, not by the actual, government of Pennsylvania. Just some minor details though. Doesn't change the story that it was here and the role it played. Alright, on our way to Mercersburg. Heading south. Alright, so while we're making our way to Mercersburg, let's talk about Reverend Steele's fort. By the name Reverend Steele, this fellow was a pastor. He had a church down this way where we're headed, just south of what's today known as Mercersburg. I believe it was built in 1736. But it was turned into one of these places of refuge. I mean, it stayed a church, but they kind of built a stockade around the church. Which makes sense, because a church would have been a slightly bigger building in the area. So it would be easier to fit all the families in the area in that church. What's kind of interesting about Reverend Steele is that he became, they created a company of militia in the area, and he was named captain of that company. I guess they were called Rangers, actually, if I remember correctly. And he was voted as their captain. So as with a lot of the men in this area, they had to take on dual roles. He was a pastor and a soldier. A lot of the other men were farmers or other tradesmen, and they became soldiers too, in a way. I guess one story goes that in the middle of one of his sermons on Sunday morning, an Indian attack happened, and I guess one man came and reported it. He was quiet about it, but the Reverend Steele figured out what was going on, and he stopped his sermon because he was captain of the Rangers of that group. So right in the middle of the sermon, he had to go off with his other men and deal with the attack. So it's kind of interesting just how the way it was back then. And most of us today don't worry about stuff like that, going to church and having to worry about an attack happening in the middle of church and your pastor having to run off to fight a battle. It doesn't have to be church, it could be something else too. Your boss at work or something. Times were different back then. Alright, we are heading into Mercersburg. Kind of on the outskirts of it. I think we gotta go all the way through town. We gotta hook up with Route 16. Looking for Findlay Road. And I don't remember if there's a modern historical marker there or one of the older stone ones. But we'll find out. Hopefully this location isn't as busy. Trying to cross Route 30 there is not, like I said, not the greatest idea. Oh, here is 16 already. I think we need to go to the left. Oh, yellow light. Alright, we're heading out of town. I think where 416 heads off to the right, we gotta keep going just a little bit. I think it's where we'll find Findlay Road. Yeah, I recognize this area. I filmed one of our covered bridges was down here. I'm trying to remember which one it was. There are two of them down this way. Anyway, I can't remember. Alright, yeah, so 416 goes off to the right. Route 16 continues straight. So up here should be our road, Findlay Road. Oh, I see them. I see one of the markers right there. It's a modern blue one. I gotta find a place to park. Alright, so up here is the modern blue sign. Just stay away from the road. And here we go, Reverend Steele's Fort. Alright, it's a little bit quieter. Yeah, Reverend Steele's Fort. The Reverend John Steele, pastor of Upper West Conocheague, was made militia captain, and his church, stockaded in 1755, provided protection from hostile Indians. The site is at Church Hill. So probably not right at this spot, but somewhere nearby. Church Hill. There's a hill up behind us. Some geese out there. Snow geese, it looks like. Ouch, thorns. Thorns everywhere. Alright. Alright, so now I gotta find a place to turn around, and we'll see if we can find where Fort Davis was located. I got a little more to say about Reverend Steele's Fort, I think, but then we'll go in search of our third fort. Alright, we are on our way again. Finally got a little lull in the traffic there, so I can turn around. Everybody's out about today. Yeah, that church, Reverend Steele's church, it did burn down in, I think, 1863, roughly. And then he actually moved to Carlisle then, started preaching there. Alright, but now we're headed to Fort Davis. I think the southernmost, what's considered the southernmost fort here in Pennsylvania. I think the people that lived there didn't quite know if they were in Pennsylvania or in Maryland. The border wasn't super established back then. And another thing too is there's another location too that's referred to as Fort Davis west of here, I noticed. So over that way there is a Fort Davis Road, kind of south of where Buchanan State Park is located, I believe. So there could be another Fort Davis. I mean, Davis is a common name. All right, but we got to head to Welsh Run first. All right, this is Welsh Run, and we're going to turn right onto 995, Welsh Run Road, and we're looking for Bain Road. So I think there is a modern blue marker here, but one source said if I go down Bain Road a little bit further, we'll see a stone marker, an older stone marker for it too, but we'll see. I think we'll at least go looking for it. Because sometimes the modern blue historical markers tend to be put in more visible locations, like on the main roads, like this one. This is a numbered highway, but sometimes the stone markers are on more the back road, closer to where the fort was actually located. Alright, don't see Bain Road anymore. Oh, I should say yet. Clay Lick, that's where we're headed next, I believe. After Fort Davis. Maybe I'll just keep you on. Because as soon as I turn the camera off, boom, right there will be the historical marker. Actually, yeah, that's what happened. Right here it is. I see it. It's right off to our on our right side there. I think I'll pull over right here. All right, here we go. A lot quieter road too to read on. Fort Davis, built about 1755 on land of Philip Davis, further south in this state of a line of settlers' refuges from Indian attacks. This site is about a mile away. I believe it's down that way. So that's Bain Road. We are going to head down that way, see if we can find the stone marker that the one website mentioned. And as we look for that stone marker, I got a few other things to tell you about this fort then. All right, so we're heading down Bain Road, because that sign said it was about, the fort was a mile down this way, so that might be where the stone marker is. But according to some records, this fort was attacked in February of 1756 by some familiar names, several different Indian chiefs we've done videos on in the past, Shingas and Captain Jacobs. It's hard to know of the entire truth about that. I don't know if both the chiefs were there or just one of them, but in 1756, about that time, a number of attacks did occur in this area. Several forts fell. So it's quite possible, because they did attack the private forts too, not always just the garrisoned forts. The private forts were easier to attack sometimes, so they would do that instead. Couldn't come across any other details about what happened to the people. Did the fort survive or anything like that? All right, what's this road? They said it was near where Bain joins up with what's called Royer Road, so we'll keep our eyes open. Yeah, and also I read that in the area where the fort stood, up until 1933, there was a house known as the Old Fort House. But they say that it was torn down in 1933, so not sure if that was potentially the original house that was fortified or not, or if that just became kind of legend, but irregardless, unfortunately they tore it down. What does this say? Oh, it's Institute Rock Hill Farm Visitor Center. Huh. Looks like they have some trails and stuff there. Alright, where is this stone marker at? Maybe I'll turn you off for now. Of course, I feel like I see something up here. That's just, there's no marker on that stone though. Alright. Because I feel like just as soon as I turn you off, then I'll find it. So maybe I'll just leave you on. If you don't mind me leaving you on as we look together. They're usually right next to the road. Feels like we've gone at least a mile, too. Okay, I feel like this should be Royer Road up here. And it doesn't say. Alright, I'll get back to you. Well, we are now in Maryland. So, yeah, we came a little bit too far south. Yeah, Bain Road continued on. I didn't realize I was going to end up in Maryland, but here we are. Second time this year we've been in Maryland. The first time was was at the Glen Hope covered bridge. Had to go into Maryland. All right, I got to find a place to turn around. We got to get back into Pennsylvania. This is not the French and Indian War in Maryland. French and Indian War in Pennsylvania. All right. Anyway, hello Maryland. All right, we should be heading back into Pennsylvania in a moment here. Just around this barn here. There we go. No sign for it, but you can see the road change. All right, boom, back in PA. All right, but we're going to keep our eyes open yet for that stone historical marker. I know Bain Road continued for quite a distance past where I stopped filming at that one spot. It kind of like did a little dog leg and kept going. But you know, maybe I missed it, or maybe it's not there anymore. But anyway, if I don't find it, we're gonna head on to the next fort, Fort Marshall. I think we're gonna head towards the the town of Clay Lick, and a town called Shimpstown. I think on Google Maps they call it Shrimpstown or something like that. But anyway, that'll be Fort Marshall. Don't know a whole lot about Fort Marshall, just another one of the private forts in this area. But let's we'll hop back in Naomi here and continue. I mean, it's a beautiful day today. It's not quite 50 degrees, but although we do have some weather coming in. There'll be some rain this afternoon and maybe some snow tonight. We'll see what happens. But anyway, let's get going. All right, so we'll keep looking. But like I said, you know, there's a possibility of there being another Fort Davis. And there's a possibility that that's the one that was attacked, because that is closer to, that's further west than this one would have been, which would have made it more susceptible to those attacks. So there's some confusion about that sometimes. That's the way it is with sites that are this old. Like I said, Davis is a common name, so there could have been several Fort Davises. But we'll look in. I'm going to look into that other one yet. See if we can find anything on that. There's a number of boulders on the sides of the roads, but none of them have markers on them for the fort. There's one up here too. What's this one? Yeah, just decorations in people's yards. Of course, maybe they have something on them that's just corroded. I can't see, but anyway. Usually there's a metal plaque on it. All right, I'm going to turn you off for now, though. Yeah, just past that, what was it, the Kakanachig, probably pronouncing that wrong, Institute, the Rock Hill Farm. It's actually like a little nature preserve there. I might actually stop in and do some hiking there. I was looking for a place in the area to do some other filming. I think that'll work. It's not going to be too far from the last fort that we visit. So yeah. If the weather stays nice, that's where we'll head there, I think. All right, I gotta head back to Route 995, and we've got just about several miles to drive to get to the last fort location. I haven't seen any other marker along the road here, so we'll head on to Fort Marshall. All right, back here is 995 again. That historical marker, the modern one, is just off to our right. So we're going to continue on 995 to the junction with Route 75, and we'll get on Clay Lick Road, and then where Clay Lick and Shimpstown's Road meet up, that's where the last fort location should be. Fort Marshall. Okay, here's Route 75 with a junction with it. So right across should be Clay Lick Road. Alright, so we should be there soon. Nobody coming. Let me quick read my directions. Yeah, so to junction with Shimpstown's Road. That should be right up here. I guess I'm saying it right, Shimpstown. I keep wanting to say Shrimptown. This gives you a good view of those mountains up ahead. I keep saying it, but you know that was the frontier up there. These people were living in, you know, the shadow of the frontier, I guess you could say. Oh, I think our junction is up here. I see a stop sign. Let's see if there's a historical. Oh, I do see the modern historical sign. So I think we'll pull over. Let's see here. Maybe right up here somewhere. Looks like a good spot. Alright, so right here is the junction of Clay Lick and Shimpstown Road. Looks like there's a ski resort up on the mountain up there. Whitetail. But here's the sign for it. Not so busy right here, it's good. Fort Marshall. This settler's refuge, located near Warm Spring Indian Trail, was built about 1755 on the land of William Marshall. It was used as a station in the daily military patrol to guard the southwestern frontier of the Kakanachig settlement from raids in the French and Indian War. site is about 4 or 5 miles southeast of here. So this sign once again mentions how it was a settler's fort, built by settlers, but it does mention that it was used as a daily patrol. I don't know if a daily patrol would necessarily be true. I think we're not too far from Fort Loudon, which was one of the big forts in the area made by the Pennsylvania government. Actually manned by British troops at different times, so maybe that's true. Maybe they did use Fort Marshall at times for their patrol. But anyway, I think that'll be it then for this video. Four more forts that I didn't really know about. I keep doing research. You just keep learning new things. There's always more and more stuff about the French and Indian War that I never knew about. Maybe you never knew about either, especially if you live in this area. So, sometimes we drive by these historical markers and don't pay much attention to them, but there's a story to them. All right, but there'll be more coming in this series. Obviously, we're gonna get out to Western Pennsylvania and do some more of those videos. But for today, I'm gonna head back to that little preserve, the Rock Hill Farm, whatever it was called, because there was one of the trails there was called the Old Welsh Cemetery Trail. If you know me, that sounds intriguing. But I think it's where we're gonna head back to. As always, folks, thanks for coming along, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one, wherever that may be.